Nilmai, haere welcome. I'm Bruce Munro, and with me via video is International Relations Specialist Professor Robert Patman, and this is Global Insight. Mexico has just elected its first female president in its 200-year history. Who is Claudia Sheinbaum, and what does her election mean for global politics? Let me first ask, what does the election of Claudia Sheinbaum mean? What does it tell us about what the Mexicans are wanting for their future?
I think to some degree, it's a reflection of the fact that the outgoing president, Andrés Obrador, who made serious inroads into reducing poverty, was very popular. And he has publicly supported Claudia Sheinbaum in her bid to become president. She's got a lot of the political experience. She's in the same Morena ruling party as Obrador. And she's a previous mayor of Mexico City, a very important city, of course, in that country. And she is she's a climate scientist. She has a Jewish background, and she's a woman.
And what's going on in Mexico that people have voted for her?
I think to some extent, she benefited from the endorsement from the outgoing Obrador. He was a populist but very popular figure who actually delivered to some degree in reducing inequality. The problem, she does inherit a number of formidable problems though, and I think she's expected to put her own stamp on things. So it's going to be a very interesting period. One of the biggest challenges she faces, Bruce, is security. It should be remembered that 38 candidates were killed in this election. And, you know, Sheinbaum won by a landslide, by the way, over her closest rival, Xochitl Galvez. So I think Galvez got about between 26 and 28% of the vote, and Sheinbaum got between 56 and 60% of the vote. So she's got a substantial mandate.
There was a suggestion that she'll merely be a puppet for the outgoing president, Andrés Obrador. What's your take on that?
Well, in a sense, that's probably a superficial reading of the fact that she had strong endorsement from a very popular politician. But her background suggests that she's very much her own person. And also, you could say that some commentators may be sexist. They may be quite incapable of. This is a country which traditionally has practiced macho male politics, and not just politics either. I mean, it's something of a macho male culture. And so it may be difficult for many traditional political commentators to come to terms that not only has Mexico got a woman president, but a president who's going to make her own decisions and is not simply the puppet of someone else. So I would be quite skeptical about those responses. I think it's nice to have the endorsement and to be mentored by someone like Obrador. But I expect, and politics elsewhere suggests this, that often people who come into a job with strong backing, or often seen as the compromise candidate in some cases, they often turn out to be far more decisive and far more transformationalist than many people anticipate. So to cut a long story short, what we will see in the next 2 years or so will determine whether she is simply an extension of Obrador or not.
Does her presidency signal any change in global politics and global relations?
That's a difficult one to say at this stage. There's been warm congratulations sent by the Biden administration and many of Mexico's neighbors in South America and also Canada. I mentioned before that, in a sense, Sheinbaum sees herself an inclusive figure, not only the first woman to run Mexico as president, but also a Jewish background. She is also pro-Palestinian, which is interesting because there may emerge, given that Mexico is a significant country with a large population, it may emerge as a bit of a subtle challenge to Biden's unconditional support for Israel, given the global problem at the moment, or the conflict in Gaza, which has global ramifications. On the other side of the coin, however, Sheinbaum is expected to continue the pragmatic policies, economic policies pursued by her predecessor, Obrador, which is trade liberalisation, and also, where possible, working. The United States is Mexico's biggest trade partner. I don't think there'll be any change in that, but there could be some potential complications in the relationship, either with the Biden administration or its potential successor, a new Trump administration. The continuing problem of migration from Mexico to the United States has been causing tension. We know now that Mr. Biden is taking measures to try to reduce the inflow, but I think that could be a potential problem for her in US-Mexican relations. But overall, I don't think there are going to be any immediate dramatic shifts.
Do you know where Mexico sits on some of the other global issues, Taiwan, China, Ukraine, Russia?
Mexico tends to be a multilateral player, and therefore finds that many of its positions align with New Zealand's. And sometimes that has caused tension with the United States. Mexico has been quite forthright in its stance on international issues. So I think that New Zealand would find many of Mexico's stances on things like the Ukraine, Gaza to be quite consistent with its own. I mean, at the moment we are speculating a bit, Bruce. There's an old saying in politics: it's not what you say you're going to do, but how you actually react to unanticipated events that often, if you like, makes or breaks a political career.
How do you think New Zealand's government will view her election?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think Sheinbaum has the potential. She comes across very well in media interviews. She has the potential to be a significant international leader. And, you know, to some extent, parallels might be drawn by Jacinda Ardern's emergence and Sheinbaum's emergence. It's fair to say that Jacinda Ardern broke a few glass ceilings in this country. And I think it's fair to say that Sheinbaum, even more so, actually, in Mexico. So it will be interesting to see whether Sheinbaum is largely domestically focused in the early years of her presidency, or whether she will actually start to take a distinctive position on international issues. She's expected to continue the welfare policy of her predecessor, but she has real problems with the security issue. We mentioned that 38 candidates were killed in the election. There was a major problem with the murderous antics of drug cartels. And while Sheinbaum is calling for inclusive politics and reconciliation, many Mexicans are skeptical that anything but a hard line will prevail against those who don't operate according to the rules, and in fact have not only commit violence against those who criticize them, but also have the tendency to buy politicians. There's a big problem of corruption in Mexico. So that's going to be quite a marker, I think, for the Sheinbaum presidency, how she deals with this very big problem, lack of law and order and crime, and particularly organized crime involving drugs. And that is also a potential flashpoint in cross-border relations with the United States as well.
Thank you, Robert. And thank you for watching. Catch us next time on Global Insight. Ka kite anō.